It was a cold, gray Tuesday when I got the call. Mom's voice was a shaky whisper, filled with the kind of false calm that always preceded bad news. "Honey," she said, "your father and I have decided to give the savings account to your sister, Clara." A sharp, electric jolt shot through me. My hands clenched around the phone so tightly my knuckles turned white. The savings account, the one my parents had always hinted would be split between us. The one I had planned on using to finally open my own interior design studio in the city. For years, I had built my life around that promise, sacrificing and saving every penny I could, all while dreaming of the day I could break free from my dead-end marketing job. But why? The question was a raw sound, stripped of any pretense. "Clara needs it, sweetheart. She and Mark are struggling with their baby on the way, and the medical bills are already piling up. It's the right thing to do." "The right thing?" I scoffed, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. "What about me? I've been working my butt off for a decade, and now I get nothing. This isn't fair, Mom." She tried to rationalize, to explain how Clara's hardship made her more deserving, but all I heard was a betrayal. My sister, my gentle, kind-hearted sister, was a victim of circumstance, and I was the one paying the price. The injustice of it all simmered inside me, turning my blood to ice. I felt the familiar weight of being overlooked, of always being second best. Clara, with her perfect life, and her perfect needy little family. My anger was a living thing, a storm gathering in my chest, and in that moment, I made a decision. They had promised the savings to her, but they hadn't given it to her yet. The money was still in an account with both my and my father's names on it, a remnant from a high school graduation gift. They had forgotten about it. I hadn't. If you're gripped by this story, make sure to hit that subscribe button. There's so much more to come, and you won't want to miss a single chapter of this family's downfall. The next day, the city felt different. The usual bustle of Manhattan seemed muted, a low hum beneath the thunder of my own thoughts. I walked with purpose, the cold autumn wind biting at my face, my mind replaying my mother's words. It's the right thing to do. The irony was a bitter taste in my mouth. Was it the right thing to crush one daughter's dreams to save another's? To sacrifice my future for their convenience? I didn't think so. Not anymore. My parents lived in a quiet suburban neighborhood in New Jersey, a world away from the high-stakes life I was trying to build. Their home, with its manicured lawn and white picket fence, was the picture of American domestic bliss. But I saw it as a cage, a place where expectations were whispered and then enforced. I was the rebellious one, the one who left home to chase a dream, while Clara stayed, married her high school sweetheart, and settled down. She was the one who played by the rules. Now, she was reaping the rewards, and it felt like a slap in the face. I pulled out my phone and checked the account balance. The number was there, a 6-figure sum that represented my freedom. It was a digital ghost, a promise I was about to seize. I walked into a bank branch a few blocks from my apartment. The air was warm and smelled of coffee. A young woman with a kind smile greeted me. My heart was pounding, a frantic drum against my ribs, but I kept my face blank, a mask of calm. This was my plan, my chance to reclaim what was mine. I was going to do it, and I wasn't going to look back. Inside the bank, the transaction was swift, almost clinically so. I filled out a withdrawal slip, my hand surprisingly steady as I wrote down the numbers. The teller didn't question the large amount. She simply smiled and asked if I needed anything else. I shook my head, my throat too tight to speak. The air around me felt thin. My entire life savings, every cent, was being transferred into my personal account. The sum was a dizzying, beautiful reality. I felt a rush of adrenaline, a heady mix of triumph and fear. I walked out onto the street, the world a blur of yellow taxis and hurried footsteps. The wind felt colder, but I barely noticed. I had done it. I had taken control. The feeling was intoxicating. For the first time in years, I felt a sense of power. No more living under the shadow of my parents' favoritism. No more being the forgotten daughter. I was in charge of my own destiny now. The guilt was a faint echo, a small, weak voice in the back of my mind that I quickly silenced. This was about survival, about getting what I was owed. I spent the rest of the day in a haze. I went to a coffee shop, but the drink tasted like nothing. I walked through Central Park, but the vibrant fall colors seemed dull. My phone buzzed with a message from Clara. "Hey, Mom said you're upset about the account. I'm so sorry. I told them not to, but..." I read the message, my lips curling into a cynical smile. She was sorry, but she wasn't giving the money back. The message just fueled my resolve. I turned my phone off. There was nothing more to talk about. The money was mine. The first few weeks were a high. I leased a small, sun-drenched storefront in a trendy neighborhood, the perfect location for my future design studio. I spent hours sketching layouts, picking out swatches, and imagining the life I was building for myself. The money felt like a shield, a protective bubble that allowed me to finally be who I was meant to be. I started cutting off communication with my family. My parents' calls went to voicemail, and Clara's texts were left unread. Each unreturned message was a small victory, a defiant act against the people who had wronged me. I threw myself into work, meeting with contractors and suppliers. The business was a new kind of obsession, a way to channel my rage and hurt into something productive. The more I worked, the less I thought about what I had done. The guilt, once a whisper, was now completely gone, replaced by a fierce, burning pride. I was doing this on my own terms. I was finally succeeding. Then, the first call came. It was my mother, her voice laced with panic. "Honey, please call us back. Clara and Mark. They're having problems with the baby. The hospital bills are immense and they can't cover it." I let the voicemail run out, my heart giving a small, triumphant leap. So, it had begun. The consequences of their choice, not mine. I felt a surge of cold satisfaction. They had chosen her, and now they were seeing the result of that decision. They had to deal with this, not me. If you're enjoying this dramatic turn of events, make sure you're subscribed. We've got 6 more chapters of this thrilling story to go, and you don't want to miss the climax. A few days later, my father called. His voice was tired, devoid of its usual booming authority. "We know you took the money, Sarah. The bank notified us. Please, we're begging you. They're going to lose their home. We need the money for the hospital." The sound of his voice, filled with such raw desperation, was like a physical blow. But I pushed through it. "You promised me that money," I said, my voice hard and unforgiving. "You said you'd split it. You lied." "It's not about lies, honey. It's about life and death. That money was for both of you, for a rainy day. This is a storm. Please, Sarah, be the person we raised you to be." His words hit a nerve, but my resolve was solid. "The person you raised me to be is a person who gets screwed over," I shot back, the anger bubbling up. "You made your choice. Live with it." I hung up before he could say anything else. The guilt was back, and this time, it was a tidal wave. I tried to go back to my work, to the vibrant colors and sleek designs, but they all looked dull. The beautiful storefront I had so proudly secured suddenly felt like a prison. The walls seemed to be closing in on me. I tried to distract myself, going for a long run in a park, but the cool breeze offered no relief. The weight of what I had done was pressing down on me, a heavy burden I couldn't shake. I knew I had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. But my pride wouldn't let me back down. I had to see this through, no matter the cost. The calls and texts became more frequent, a relentless barrage of pleas and accusations. I finally blocked my parents and Clara. My peace of mind was worth more than their desperate pleas. I had to focus on my business. My grand opening was approaching, and I needed to be ready. The storefront, once a symbol of my triumph, now felt like a lonely bunker, a place to hide from the reality I had created. I worked late into the night, arranging furniture and hanging art, my mind a storm of anxiety and self-doubt. The joy I had once felt was gone, replaced by a gnawing emptiness. Every time I looked at a new lamp or a piece of decor, I saw the faces of my family, their expressions a mixture of betrayal and anguish. One evening, my phone buzzed with a message from a number I didn't recognize. It was my father's best friend, a kind man who had known me since I was a child. The message was simple but devastating. Your parents are selling their house. They're trying to raise the money for your sister. They're moving into a small apartment. Is this what you wanted? The words were a stake through my heart. My childhood home, the place where I had celebrated birthdays and holidays, where I had spent countless nights drawing and dreaming, was being sold because of me. The vision of my parents, two people I had once adored, moving out of the home they had built, was more than I could bear. They were sacrificing everything for Clara, just as they had with the savings. And I was the reason. The realization hit me with the force of a physical blow. I wasn't just taking back what I thought was mine. I was destroying my family. I had become the monster they probably saw me as, a villain in a story where I had once believed I was the hero. The financial ruin of my sister's family was not a victory, but a tragedy I had set in motion. And now, my parents, who had always been a safety net, a stable foundation in my life, were suffering because of me. I tried to call my mother, but she didn't answer. Then my father. He didn't answer either. My hands were shaking. I typed a frantic message to Clara. Please, call me back. I'm so sorry. The message went unread. I had pushed them all away so completely that there was no way back. The savings account, once a symbol of my freedom, now felt like a chain, a heavy weight dragging me down into a pit of despair. I paced the polished floors of my new studio, the scent of fresh paint and new wood, which once filled me with hope, now suffocating me. This wasn't a dream. This was a nightmare, a gilded cage I had built with my own hands. I had the money, I had the business, but I had lost everything that truly mattered. The hollow ache in my chest was a constant companion. I went to my childhood home, only to find a for sale sign on the lawn. The windows were dark, the yard overgrown. It was a ghost of a house, a reflection of the family I had broken. The tears finally came, hot and stinging, as I stood there in the cold, staring at the empty house. If you're captivated by this story and want to see how it all ends, make sure you're subscribed to our channel. The final chapters are where everything falls apart. For weeks, I tried to make amends, but every effort was met with silence. My calls went to voicemail. My texts went unanswered. The guilt was a physical sickness, a constant ache in my stomach. The pride I once felt for my new business turned to ash. I would sit in my studio for hours, staring at the beautiful designs, unable to feel a thing. The place felt empty, a monument to my selfish ambition. I finally managed to get a hold of Mark, Clara's husband. He answered the phone, his voice flat and weary. "Sarah," he said, and the way he said my name, with no emotion at all, was more devastating than any anger. "Why did you do it?" I don't know," I stammered, the words catching in my throat. I was angry. I felt like they chose her over me. "It wasn't a choice, Sarah," he said, his voice breaking. "Clara had complications. We almost lost the baby. The hospital was threatening to stop treatment. Your parents did what they had to do. They were trying to save their grandchild's life. His words hit me like a train. I had imagined a petty squabble over inheritance, a slight I had to avenge. But this was about life and death. I had gambled with my sister's child's life and lost. I had no idea. The world tilted on its axis. The rage I had held on to, the righteous indignation, suddenly seemed so small, so pathetic. I wasn't just a villain in my own story. I was a monster. The following days were a blur of despair. My studio, once a beacon of hope, was now a tomb of my own making. I went through the motions, meeting with clients, but my heart wasn't in it. The creative spark was gone, extinguished by the cold reality of my actions. I would sit for hours, staring at a blank canvas, unable to conjure a single idea. The beautiful, sleek furniture and elegant color palettes seemed like a mockery of my empty soul. I had achieved my dream, but I was living a nightmare. The money I had stolen, once a symbol of my freedom, had become tainted, a constant reminder of the pain I had caused. One evening, scrolling through my phone, I saw a news report about a family in New Jersey. A small community was raising money for a baby with a rare medical condition. I clicked on it, my heart pounding in my chest, a terrible premonition washing over me. There was Clara, her face pale and drawn, holding a tiny, fragile baby. Mark was by her side, his arm around her, his expression a mix of exhaustion and resolve. They were in front of their house, the one they were about to lose. The community was rallying around them, holding bake sales and car washes, their kindness a stark contrast to my cruelty. My stomach twisted into a knot of shame and regret. They had lost their parents' help, but the world was there for them, and I was on the outside, looking in, the one who had abandoned them. I knew what I had to do. The money, all of it, had to go back. But where? To whom? I had blocked them, and they wouldn't answer me. My grand plan had backfired. I had planned every move, every vengeful step, but I had never considered what would happen if I won. I had the money, but I had lost my family. And the realization was a pain so sharp and so deep that it made all the anger I had ever felt seem like a child's tantrum. The rage that had fueled me for months now felt childish, pathetic. I had traded my family for a dream that had turned into a nightmare. I found out where my parents were moving, a small, 2-bedroom apartment a few towns over. It was a stark contrast to their beautiful suburban home, with its large yard and sun-filled rooms. The thought of them leaving behind decades of memories, birthday parties on the patio, holiday dinners in the dining room, the garden my father had tended so lovingly, all because of me, was a weight I could barely bear. The once familiar streets of their old neighborhood now felt like a foreign country, a place I no longer belonged. I drove the few miles to their new address, each turn of the wheel a reminder of the chasm I had created. The wind was bitter, a fitting echo of the cold emptiness in my chest. I stood outside their door, a check for the full amount, every cent I had taken, and then some to make up for my pride, clutched so tightly in my hand that my knuckles were white. My heart was a frantic drum against my ribs as I raised my hand and knocked. The sound was so small, so meek, a silent plea for forgiveness on my lips. My mother answered. Her face, once so full of warmth and laughter, was now etched with a profound sadness that made my knees weak. Her eyes, which had always held a gentle light, were dim, weary from a sorrow I had inflicted. She looked at me, and in that moment, there was no anger, no accusation, not even pity. Just a deep, bone-weary sadness that told me I had caused more pain than I could ever comprehend. I held out the check, the paper a silent apology for all the pain I had caused. "I'm so sorry, Mom," I whispered, the words a raw, broken sound. "I'm so sorry for everything." She didn't take the check. She just looked at me, then at the paper in my hand, and finally back to my face. Her silence was more powerful than any words she could have said. It was an acknowledgement of the pain I had inflicted, a quiet, heartbreaking acceptance of the new reality I had created. "We don't need it now," she said softly, her voice still filled with that heavy sadness. "The community raised enough money. Clara and the baby are going to be okay." My world crumbled. My final act of redemption, my last-ditch effort to fix what I had broken, was useless. I had a fistful of cash and an empty heart. The money, once my prize, was now nothing more than a burden, a useless pile of paper. I had all the money in the world, but I was truly, completely alone. The silence stretched between us, a chasm I had created with my greed and my pride. I had won the battle for the money, but I had lost the war for my family. My victory was the ultimate defeat. The savings account I had drained to prove a point was nothing more than a monument to my loneliness. My dream of a new life had come true, but it was a hollow, empty existence. I walked back to my car, the check still in my hand, feeling the full weight of my isolation. My parents had been saved not by me, but by a community of strangers. The very people I had pushed away were now part of a support system that I had been completely shut out of. I had chosen to be on my own, and now I was truly, irrevocably alone. The success I had craved felt like a hollow shell. My beautiful new studio, once a symbol of my freedom and ambition, was just a place filled with expensive, meaningless things. It was a monument to a life I had built on a foundation of betrayal, and it was a home I was destined to inhabit all by myself. If you were moved by this story of family, betrayal, and the consequences of greed, consider subscribing to our channel and hitting the notification bell. It helps us keep bringing you powerful stories like this one.